Hey everyone, and welcome back to the vlog. I hope you guys are doing fine. I'm doing great. The hot weather is finally here. I've been thrashing through on the S14 to get it ready for the DMCC season, and I have lots of updates for you guys today. Before I show you what is done right now, I'm honestly, when I start rolling and I start working like on an evening or whatever, I always forget to go get the camera, or it's not charged or whatever. So I did film some updates with my iPhone, which I'll show you guys right now, and it's pretty much the steps of assembling the motor. And once we get through those, we'll cut back to this moment right here. So here are those videos. So I started working on the engine this evening, and just to give you a little update, we as in I managed to get the old gear off, which is right here. This is the OEM gear, so I went to get a bearing puller from Princess Auto, pulled this guy off, put the new one on. Now I'm running the Cloys. I'm not sure, I'd have to check the part number, but this one you could actually retard or advance the timing, but I just put it to the stock setting because I could play with timing with the Holley Terminator X. So put this guy on, took the old one, flipped it upside down, put it on, took a bolt and a washer, a large washer, and I drove it on. So that's how you install this. I installed the LS2 damper with the melling bracket, and then I installed the Cloys timing chain and gear, ARP bolts, torqued these guys to 25 pounds. And now we're ready to attack the oil pump. And there's something really important to do when you install the oil pump, and I'll show it to you right now. So when you're installing your oil pump, well, it's the case for the melling. I'm running the melling, let's see right now, 10295. So it's the regular volume but high pressure pump. They recommend that you shim before tightening these bolts. You're supposed to use feeler gauges and center this gear before tightening it to make sure you're perfectly centered. So, you know, there's a gap all around so the oil could get all around. So I took 2 sets of feeler gauges. This one's riveted, so I didn't want to, you know, drill the rivet. But the other one, I bought one. So it's full, it goes all the way around on the top here. So now I'm sure that it's perfectly circle and the oil is going to be able to get all the way around and not wear it out prematurely. I just finished torquing the bolts, so now I could pull the feeler gauges out. As you can see now, I took the feeler gauges out, and look how easily this gear can come in and out. It fits super easily. If you were to just torque these 4 bolts without centering that, this gear would be really hard to get out, or you wouldn't even be able to get it out. So, but by seeing this, you know that oil is going to be getting all the way around. All right, so I just installed the front cover, and something really cool. I 3D printed, because you're supposed to have a special tool to center the cover, you know, so it's perfectly centered with the crank, because if it's not centered, then you could wear out the seal prematurely and it'll start to leak oil, and you don't want that. So I 3D printed. I drew up and 3D printed this tool, and now I just pressed in the seal, so I won't really be able to show you. But before the seal was installed, I took this tool, stuck it on here, and it centered the cover, so I was able to torque all the ARP bolts. And once it was torqued, took the tool off, went to get the front seal, and then tapped it in with this same tool. So yeah, it's a pretty cool thing. I did the same thing for the rear. I already designed it, I just have to print it out. So, but I'll be doing that once I take it off the stand because I don't have enough room to do that. So I think that's gonna be enough for tonight. It's almost 2 a.m. I have to be at the office tomorrow morning, but it's starting to look like a motor. All right, so we're getting ready to install the heads. I install the oil pan temporarily just because we just installed the lifters, and you're supposed to soak them in oil for about 30 minutes. So those are for the other side. So all these lifters got soaked for 30 minutes. put the lifters in the new trays. They're LS7 GM Performance lifters. I got new AC Delco trays. I got new bolts. Just torqued these down. So all I have left to do now is clean up this surface one last time, even though I've done it like 10 times. I have the new GM Performance gaskets, and I know people are divided on this, whether you should be spraying a gasket, but I'll be doing it. So I'm going to spray the gasket, wait 10 minutes, and install the head. All right, we have the head gasket coated. I installed new ICT billet dowels, and all I have now is to take one of the heads, clean it up one last time, get it installed, and we're going to take the ARP head bolts and torque these things down. Head number 1 is installed. So we cleaned up the head, installed the head, cleaned up the washers from the ARP bolts, put them in, applied the moly lube at the bottom of the heads and on the threads, as they say in the instructions, torqued them according to the sequence. You have to go in 3 steps, so 25 pounds, 50 pounds, and then 80. 80? It's 80, right? 80 pounds, yeah, exactly. And then you finish off with these smaller bolts at 25 pounds in the proper sequence. So, head number 1 is on. Time to go to head number 2. How about we do a little 3, 2, 1. No, that didn't work. Let's try that again. There it is. Second head is installed, torqued, and ready to receive the push rods and the rockers. But before we do that, I will need to press in the new trunnions that we have from Brian Tooley Racing. I will do that either tomorrow or another day because it is 1:30 a.m. and I have to get to bed. So motor is almost fully assembled. I'll actually just turn it, put the valley cover, and just place the intake to see what it looks like. And here it is with the LS6 intake just placed on top. Now, first of all, yes, this braided hose needs to be shortened because it's way too long. But second of all, unfortunately, I did not purchase the correct fuel rails. These fuel rails are for an aftermarket sheet metal LS intake and not for an LS6 intake. So the injectors are made to be straight, whereas in the LS6 intake, they're made to be like at an angle. And I don't have the angle in the fuel rail, so they're not sitting correct. So, no worries. Just gonna buy new fuel rails. If anybody wants to buy these, they will be for sale. I also have the valve covers. I started degreasing them. They still need a bit of cleaning. Then I will sandblast them and powder coat them. So yeah, that's gonna do it for tonight. I'm really happy with the progress on the engine. Really want to get drifting. So stay tuned for more updates. Thank you.
All right, now that you're up to speed on what was done to the motor, we're ready to see what has been done now in the past couple of weeks. And by the way, I don't know if you could see on my face, the cap is actually hiding it. I have a nice little cut that's healing here. I was working on the S14 and I was removing, I have a scissor lift in the garage, and the S14 was up in the air, and I was under the car removing the front sway bar because you can't run the stock front sway bar with an LS because it does not clear the oil pan. So I was under the car and I was using a regular ratchet, and it was taking so much time and I wasn't comfortable. I'm like, you know what, there's a reason why I have Milwaukee tools. Let me go get the Milwaukee tool. And I stood up, I felt something slice my face, and it's actually the mounts of my headlight mounts on the S14. It's like thin sheet metal, and it just sliced my face. And you know, I won't get into details, but it wasn't very nice. And on top of it, like a week later, I was at iCar with my girlfriend, and we were using the golf cart to go to the bathroom because the bathrooms are pretty far. And
I decided to jump off the back of the golf cart, and we weren't going that fast, but my feet decided not to follow, and I just did a nice stomach slide. Well, stomach slide, it's my knee that took the impact, but I slid on the asphalt and I destroyed my knee. So that's that. So let's see what the S14 looks like right now. So the motor is installed. I installed it about 2 weeks ago. Unfortunately, it's not permanently installed. It's gonna have to come back out, and I'll explain why later. But I pretty much mocked everything up. I had to do a lot of custom work. The rad, because I have such a beefy fan, I'm running a fan from a Taurus. It's one fan, but it's a dual speed. And this thing apparently pushes, like, the numbers online are a bit everywhere, but it's between 4,500 and 5,000 CFM on the high speed setting. So as you can see, it clears. The fan's not really bolted down. There's a couple of inches. Yeah, there's enough clearance, but it did take a lot of work. I had to drill some new holes for the pins under the rad to move the radiator forward. Now what that did is I actually wanted to mount the Ecu sump, because I'm going to be running an Ecu sump. I wanted to mount it in front of the rad. And now with the rad pushed all the way forward, I was a little worried that let's say if ever there were to be an impact, hopefully not, but it's drifting, so like that stuff can happen. I was going to put it further forward now that the rad has moved up, but I'm like, if ever I get in a front impact, even though I do have a bash bar, let's say I'm in a competition and one of the battles, there's an impact, and I would have the Ecu sump there, and all of a sudden I get an oil leak, I probably wouldn't have the time to fix it or have any solution to fix it. So I decided to move it inside the cabin, and unfortunately, we will have to make like an enclosure, because per the rule books, you do have to have like a protection, to protect the driver and the passenger if there's a passenger. So you need like a sort of firewall around the Ecu sump. So I'm gonna have to make that, but shouldn't be too difficult. So I'll show you guys. I actually just finished bolting it down right now. So as you can see, the Ecu sump is mounted on the trans tunnel. Now this tunnel was modified back in the days when Briggs was driving the car. Ardo had made a bigger tunnel for a dog box. So that's cool, and it was very easy to just drill some holes, put some riv nuts, and mount the Ecu sump. So what I'll be doing is on the passenger side, I'll be putting like a bulkhead fitting, and it's going to be a -10 line, and I'll tee into the return of the remote oil filter. That too I could show you right now. For now I mounted it here quickly, but I saw that Siki sells a bracket that actually, because it screws in the pan down there, but they pass the lines under the pan, and they actually make a bracket that will bolt right here, these holes, and it puts the filter like in this hole here, because there's actually nothing that goes there. Everything, as you can see, other than I have to find a bottom rad hose that'll fit, but other than that it's pretty empty up here. This just needs to be looped. But then you have your power steering pump. I have to go pick up the reservoir for my father's, and you have the alternator that's down there. So yeah, I think I'm gonna switch over the filter on the other side, and then it's gonna be easier to tap into it to go to the bulkhead fitting to the Ecu sump. Now, one thing I didn't film, unfortunately, is when I did the Trunnion Upgrade. So I had showed in the previous video that I bought the BTR Trunnion Upgrade kit. So pretty much you just press out the old sleeves, the old trunnions, and you upgrade them to needle bearing with lock washers and everything. If ever you're interested in doing it for your vehicle, you could go on YouTube. There's loads and loads of videos, and it's super easy. It's very easy. You just need a bench press and couple of sockets, needle nose, not needle nose, but the C-clip pliers, and it's just time consuming. So I did that. I installed the rockers. I actually have I purchased BTR bolts for the rockers, so I just have to do that. I put these stock push rods for now because they're the correct length. I just wanted to assemble the motor quickly, but I already ordered the BTR chromoly hardened push rods. That's pretty quick to just throw in, but at least I could get it running and everything with the stock push rods, no problem. So other things that I did, like I saw before, I installed all the accessory drive. Since I'm running an LQ block, the bolt for the alternator bracket that goes into the block at the top, when it's the LQ, it actually does not have the hole. It's just like blank. So I have a special template from ICT Billet. I'm gonna need to drill and tap for that top hole. So other than that, I got my Terminator X kit. Well, that's just old wiring. I pulled out all the wiring and the ECU for the Terminator X. I, mocked everything up to see what had to go where. Oh yeah, I said in a previous video that I had the wrong fuel rails. So I ended up getting the correct ones, installed that. This one too, the hose was too short, so I had to shorten this hose. I also made the stock throttle cable bracket fit. It was pretty easy. I just trimmed it a bit. I drilled a new hole to tilt it upwards, but I'm gonna need to trim it a bit more because this line is touching. So that needs to be done. I also got an adapter and I'm running a fuel pressure sensor that comes pre-wired in the Terminator kit. So yeah, I passed all the wiring. I mocked everything up. I installed the fuel pressure regulator. I have everything to finish the fuel lines. I'm just missing 2 fittings. So I'm just missing some dash 8 straight fittings to finish the fuel system in the front and in the back. So in the front, it's pretty much just connecting from the feed to the fuel rails, and from the fuel rail back into the fuel pressure regulator and back into the return. And in the back, I'll be adding another filter. I have a small filter in the front. My lift pump has a filter, but I got a proper huge 80 mil filter to add in the back, which is going to be pretty straightforward and pretty easy. I installed the header on this side. You actually have to lift the car up and put it in from the bottom, or else it doesn't fit from the top. But this side is actually the easier side. On the driver's side, you actually have to install the header before the engine is in. Now, like I said, this engine is in temporarily. I'll get to that in 2 seconds. But yeah, you have to disconnect the steering column, feed the column through the header, reconnect the column, and just let the header sit there. Then you can put the engine in, and then you could install the header. So I bought some DEI header wrap, so I have to install that. But reason being why the engine is in, but not permanently. Now the reason why the engine will have to come back out, right now it's installed with no flywheel and no clutch. I didn't receive them yet. That should be in very shortly. But once the engine was fully assembled, I wanted to make sure everything was fine with the motor mounts, because I forget if I said in another video, these motor mounts are actually for an S13, and apparently there is a difference between the Siki S13 and S14 mounts. So I just wanted to make sure they fit. Ends up they did fit. Fits perfectly, so I installed that. And also I need to customize the tranny mount, because I'm not running a T56, I'm running an AR5. And obviously the Siki swap kit comes with a mount for the T56. So hopefully, actually, today we're Monday, on Wednesday, Ardo is supposed to be modifying the mount. It actually it bolts up to the tranny, and obviously it bolts up to the floor. There's like a couple of inches of gap, and so I'm sure Ardo can do it in like 45 minutes. Actually, hopefully I'll bring the camera and we'll film Ardo shop, and I'll show you what he's got going on down there. So yeah, we're gonna have to pull the engine back out, install the clutch and flywheel, the slave, install the pan permanently, because the pan is just bolted up but not torqued or anything. And then it's gonna be ready to put back in and hope, be permanently back in. All right, so now let's see what was done to the inside of the car. I was up till 4:30 a.m. trying to go through all the wiring of the car. Reason being, this Friday and Saturday at iCar is the Midnight Madness, and it's also they'll be doing like all the tech for the DMCC cars. So all the cars that are already ready, you can get teched at the events, but obviously they rather get it over with prior to the event, so everything goes quicker and everything. So I know the car's not going to be running or ready to drift this weekend, but I still wanted to try and bring it, have it running, so they could tech the car. Obviously there'll be a couple of things that are not up to par and not finished, but at least if they get the inspection done and say, okay, well, you have this, and this to fix, so when I show up to round one, they check those 3-4 things and say, okay, good, so we don't have to waste a lot of time at the track. But I don't know if that's going to be possible, but I will definitely be at the track. I'll bring my camera, I'll film the event. There's a team competition, the club clash, so hopefully I'll get some footage of that and you guys can enjoy it. So let's get to the inside of the car. So please don't judge the mess in the vehicle. I'm still not done. I'm pretty much, the rough is pretty much finished. I still have to loom some things up, supports, tuck everything out of the way, but mostly everything works. Here, let me turn the kill switch on. So this fuse box I had when I was running the SR20. The rest I did not have. I used to have regular, toggle switches to run ignition, fuel pump, fans, yada yada. I got rid of that for something a little cooler. So everything's wired up, have all nice connectors. I'm testing this. It's a switch panel, solid state, and you could also control it with your iPhone or Android if you're an Android user. But the switches are fully programmable. You could either have them as a constant on, momentary, or strobe. So obviously strobe would be for lights. But as you can see, let's say example, you could change all the colors too. So let's say this is ignition. And so that's a constant. The starter, which is right here, is actually switched to a momentary, so it only works when I hold it. Yeah, and other than that, we will have, this is the helmet pump. I have that. These are the driving lights, so headlights and tail lights. This is the underglow, and this was just done. This, my gosh, I have a blank memory. Oh, the wipers, sorry. These are the wipers. So right now I have 2 switches left. One is going to be for the Ecu sump. I'm going to be running the electric system for the Ecu sump. So actually, I told you guys I'll be running an Ecu sump, but maybe lots of people don't know what it is. So I'll explain what it is. An Ecu sump can be used for 2 things, and I will be using them for both things. First of all, it's made to give oil pressure to an engine before starting it up. So the way it works is when let's say the car's running, I'm about to shut the car, I will disengage the Ecu sump, and pretty much it will take a reserve of oil pressure in that tank. So, and then you could shut your car and everything's fine. When you come to restart the car, before starting the car, you engage the Ecu sump and it'll pump oil pressure into the engine prior to cranking it. So you'll never be doing a cold start. You'll have oil pressure even at startup. So that's really good for an engine to prolong the life by having oil pressure for the bearings when you're cranking it. The second thing that you're going to be able to do with the Ecu sump, and I will also be using it for that, when you're driving, when I'm drifting, if ever there would be a situation that for whatever reason my engine loses oil pressure, what the Ecu sump will do is it has a pressure sensor. It will sense that the pressure is dropping. It will inject oil pressure into the engine. Obviously it can't do it forever, but at least, if you're drifting, you're in a corner and you lose oil pressure, by the time you get out of the corner, you will be able to see on your screen that you have low oil pressure, but at least the AccuSump pumped oil pressure for you to save the engine, at least so you could finish your drift. So obviously it's not foolproof. There's still a chance of failure, but it's a really good system to have. Apparently LSs are prone to having loss of oil pressure, so it's an added safety to have. Yeah, so there'll be one switch for the AccuSump to arm and disarm it. I'll have one switch left. I don't know. Well, it could be two things. I was thinking of putting a dome light. So, you know, at night when somebody's getting in or whatever, you want to be able to see in the car. But also there's a high possibility that this car will be running nitrous and I will need a purge. Actually, I will need a purge and probably a button to arm the nitrous. So anyways, I'll cross that bridge when the time comes. But yeah, so in the center, that box is for the switch panel. Here we have the plugs for the Terminator Ecu, which I designed. I'm printing a bracket to mount the ECU. The ECU is here. It's pretty small. So this is the ECU. So yeah, everything's wired up. Everything works. Here we have the screen that comes, well, doesn't always come with the Terminator X, depends what package you purchase. But here is the 3.5-inch screen. I also designed a mount. I'm going to mount it on the column. And yeah, so here is, the tranny. Oh, that's no good. So right now this is the shifter location for the AR5. Now ideally you would want your shifter to be closest to the stock location. We're not too far. What I'm doing is I'm going to be custom making a remote shifter. So this will be gone and you'll have a linkage and a plate, and the shifter will be a bit further back right here. So I'll get to that in the next couple of videos. But other than that, I think I showed you almost everything. I could show you, I had to switch out the clutch master. The stock one is not strong enough for the T56 internal slave, so I'm running a Willwood. It's actually the same exact clutch master, the master as the Hydro. I'm not sure if it's the same size, but same bore, but yeah, so I have this. There's an adapter plate to bolt it to the firewall, and I have a braided line. Now here it's on the seat. So I have the braided line, and we'll be able to install that when we reinstall the engine. So that's pretty much everything I had to show you guys today. Thank you for joining. Now before we end the video, I went to iCar twice or three times in the past 2 weeks. I got some ride-alongs with some buddies, and so I figured why not include those clips. You'll be able to see the nice layout at iCar. If you guys don't know, iCar built a dedicated drift track. I think it's the first in Canada. The track is only made for drifting, and it's freaking awesome. And so yeah, I'll be able to show you guys those in-car clips with my buddies, and I think I also have a clip of the Confused crew doing their thing, also on the same track. So thank you very much. Don't forget, on Friday and Saturday I'll be at iCar for the Midnight Madness, and I'll try and get some cool footage. Other than that, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment. Have a good day. Bye.